The cathedral you see behind me is the Cathedral of Lund, which was dedicated to St. Mary and St. Lawrence on the 1st of September in the year 1145. It was the seat of a mighty archbishop who was head of the Catholic Church in the whole Nordic region, including present-day Denmark, Finland, Sweden, Norway, Iceland, Greenland, and the islands of the North Atlantic. But a cathedral, and indeed any building, is like a living being in that it changes shape and appearance as the years go by. These towers, for instance, are a landmark today, being clearly visible as you approach Lund from almost any direction. But they are only 150 years old. Let us see what the cathedral looked like 500 years ago. This bronze model shows the cathedral and its surroundings in 1536. Not only is the shape of the cathedral different, with different towers and two chapels on the south side that are now completely gone, its setting is also different. You will notice that it is completely surrounded by buildings and walls, almost like a castle. This was for protection, of course, but also a way to emphasize the cathedral's importance and holiness. Work on this cathedral started already in the 11th century. In 1103, long before it was finished, the Danish king Erik Evergood persuaded the Pope to grant Lund the privilege of having an archbishop. The town now, more than ever, needed a big and beautiful cathedral, and it is likely that the work of building it intensified. But we must remember that the stones had to be cut from quarries by hand and transported on carts drawn by oxen. Such things take time. The first part of the cathedral to be inaugurated was this part, the crypt. A crypt is a sacred space underneath the chancel of a cathedral. The exotic shape of the columns here was meant to make people think of the ancient temple in Jerusalem. The central altar was consecrated on June 30th in the year 1123 and was dedicated to St. John the Baptist, the prophet on the threshold between the Old and New Testaments. Here, the Catholic Mass could now be celebrated. But it would take another 22 years before the main altar of the cathedral in the chancel above us could also be inaugurated. Let's go up there. The altar now behind me is not, in fact, the medieval main altar. Buildings change with time, as I said, but the original altar was in roughly the same place. Standing here, we can easily imagine the splendid ceremony when it was consecrated. It was headed by Archbishop Eskil, who was assisted by 3 other bishops, all in costly liturgical garb. Other bishops were also present, most likely the king himself and his family, as well as numerous nobles and clerics of all ranks. Imagine the clanging bells, the colorful robes, the smell of incense, and a choir of singing boys. The altar was dedicated to St. Mary, ever Virgin, and St. Lawrence, distinguished martyr, as it says in a contemporary document. In accordance with Catholic custom, relics were placed inside. They were numerous and very prominent. Among them we find a piece of wood from Christ's cross, hairs from the head of the Virgin Mary, bone from the skull of John the Baptist, a relic of St. Lawrence, and a piece of the charcoal on which he was burnt to death. Moreover, relics of several apostles and numerous martyrs, holy bishops and holy women, 73 relics in all. The message of these relics was that the cathedral was joined to the whole Catholic Church like a branch to the tree. It shared the same origin, the same faith and the same sacred history as all Catholic churches around the world. It shared also in the prayers of the saints and in their merits. You could say that the relics functioned like little microphones. The saints would magnify the sound of the prayers people prayed here so that God would listen. But time passes and things change. A symbol of that is this marvelous astronomical clock, which was constructed in the 1420s. A century later, in 1536, the Lutheran Reformation came. The relics and much of the medieval furnishings in the cathedral were thrown out. This clock, too, eventually ceased to function, was dismantled and removed. But in 1923, it was reconstructed with the upper dial, very much like the original one, and the lower dial updated with a calendar that now runs to the year 2123, 1,000 years after the inauguration of the crypt altar. The clock not only shows the passing of time, but also stands as a symbol of both continuity and change in the life of Lund Cathedral. The cathedral is in many ways different now from when it was inaugurated on the 1st of September 1145, but it continues to fulfill its purpose of serving worshippers and visitors from near and far. My name is Stephan Borgehammar at the Center for Theology and Religious Studies at Lund University. Thank you for listening.